Our first speaker this evening is Rob Rogers.
Everybody. Mr. Salt, I thought we might have a conversation similar to the one that me and Mr. LaValle had a couple of weeks ago. Is he talking down to your constituents and insinuating that we just don't understand how this works? It's never going to be received well. However, I agree with you. There does seem to be a lack of understanding about how board policy works. But I lost my notes here. That's interesting. It's going to go back in and talk about the executive limitation policies and like what that actually means. In board governance policy, the GM, or in this case our superintendent, is given full rights of making any reasonable interpretation of policy that's made. So if we go back in and refer to EL 2.1, then the it says the superintendent shall not subject students to subject students to any kind of medical treatment, medical opinion, medical advice. And just looking at that and wondering like how the superintendent would make any kind of like reasonable interpretation of that particular policy outside of what exactly it says. If the policy is supposed to, the overall policy says that the superintendent is supposed to protect students from unsafe or unclear situations, introducing that type of an addition to the policy is going to make the policy itself unclear and therefore unsafe. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me of like why an addition like that would be made. And I understand the reason for it. I understand the reason why a new board member would want to impress the people that elected them and put them in that position, but this is just poorly written policy. I would just suggest like shelving it and moving on to like something else. And whenever that something else is, you determine like what that is, then if you can, instead of talking down to me about it, you instead convince me with like real data and real information, then I would be, as weird as this would be, the one defending you, if you can explain like why it has to be put in place in the first place. So I would just consider that like as you're going into your executive session tonight to talk with legal counsel, who has already suggested that this wouldn't be a good idea, to consider that it's not clear and it would make students unsafe and it would put teachers in a position where they wouldn't know exactly how they were supposed to carry on, how they were supposed to interact with the students like moving forward. I've heard that there is also going to be some shot to the heart Southern Baptist comments that are made like tonight's all of like the leftists in the room. So I'm really anxious to hear why it is that the leftists can't come up and just hold the elected officials accountable because Trump and Lamborn carried the county or